the eve of the opening Olympic ceremonies in Brazil, a new investigation into USA Gymnastics uncovers some disturbing details. As athletes are gathering in Rio, a stunning report from the Indianapolis Star and USA Today network dominated this day. It found top executives in charge of gymnastics' national governing body for years routinely ignored allegations of sexual abuse by coaches of young athletes, in some cases going back to the 1990s. The report said USA Gymnastics had files on more than 50 coaches around the country, claims that had long sat in drawers at its office in Indianapolis. That included a former coach, Mark Schiefelbein. The news report said gymnastics officials had a thick file of complaints about him for years before he was convicted of sexual battery and sexual exploitation of a minor. Former gymnast Becca Seaborn says he molested her as a young girl. Her parents learned of the extensive file USA Olympics had only after he was convicted.
Our daughter now is 26 years old. This happened when she was 10, 11. And for it still to be where it's at and for them not to have changed anything, it just makes me sick that this is still happening.
The hearing began with former U.S. Gymnastics Dr. Larry Nassar being ordered into the witness stand so his victims could look at him right in the face.
I testified to let the world know that you are a repulsive liar.
One by one, they shared their stories.
I am Jessica Tomashow, also known as Victim A. I was sexually assaulted by Larry Nassar when I was 9 and 12 years old.
You broke and shattered a lot of girls. You manipulated us to trust you because you're a doctor, and doctors do no wrong, only heal. You are not a healer. He betrayed my trust, took advantage of my youth, and sexually abused me hundreds of times.
The mom of one victim spoke on behalf of her daughter.
In 2009, she took her own life because she couldn't deal with the pain anymore.
The victims described how Nassar violated them even while their parents were in the examination room, unaware of what was going on.
His conniving and calculating behavior not only tricked me, but he tricked my mom, who was present for all my appointments as a minor.
Kyle Stevens says Nassar began abusing her when she was 6 years old in his basement.
24 Alicia Kitazoy is fit and healthy, running almost every day. But 4 years ago, she was stuck in a vicious cycle of binge eating and purging, up to 4 times a day.
How do you get to a point, or what is your brain telling you that becomes what you want to do?
It definitely becomes habit. It's kind of like an addiction. If someone were to have told me, if you do it one more time, you could die, I don't think that would have stopped me.
Alicia was a gymnast at UCLA. To master the balance beam, she practiced 24 hours a week and closely watched her weight.
When you were competing, how did you feel about your body? What kind of shape were you in?
I was probably in the best shape of my life.
In fact, Alicia's problems actually began after she left gymnastics. Without the rigorous training, she quickly gained weight.
I was always known as the gymnast to my friends, my family, so once gymnastics was taken out of the equation, it was kind of like, you know, who am I? You know, what do I have to bring to the table? What do I have to offer? So that's what triggered my eating disorder.
Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel here. It's me here, Comrade Lavender here, and today I'm back with another anti-capitalism true crime deep dive true crime video. Today I want to do the topic of pure evil, the gymnastics sports files, deep dive, capitalism, true crime, fat shaming, sexual assault, eating disorders, wage theft, etc. So let's get started in this YouTube video topic. But before we get started, all my YouTube videos that are related to this topic right now will be on the screen right now if you'd like to check them out. So let's get started finally into getting into this video topic. John Geddert, the head coach of the 2012 U.S. Women's Olympic Gymnastics team, unalived himself hours after prosecutors charged him with 24 counts, accusing him of turning his once-acclaimed Michigan gym into a hub of human trafficking and coercing girls to train there and then abusing them. The human trafficking case brought against a former U.S. Olympics women's gymnastics coach, hours before he unalived himself, could signal a new approach to policing a sport already dogged by a far-reaching sexual abuse scandal involving one-time gymnastics team doctor. Although Geddert was charged with sexually assaulting one teenager, and he also worked closely with Larry Nassar, the imprisoned sports doctor who sexually abused hundreds of women and girls under the guise it was treatment. How was Larry Nassar able to abuse so many gymnasts for so long? The biggest sexual abuse scandal in sports history shines a light on a culture of medals over morals. Their parents were told it was a sign of their daughters were destined for greatness, and this doctor who treated Olympians would treat their children. USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University employed him for decades, and according to his former patients, when complaints were made about him, they were all ignored. After all, Larry Nassar was a wonderful doctor, and no one said this more than Nassar himself, who used his reputation to groom his hundreds, possibly thousands of victims. The Larry Nassar scandal is the biggest sexual abuse scandal in sports history. Nassar's victims, who include some of the most famous female athletes around today, including Simone, Biles, and McKayla Maroney, outnumber the alleged victims of Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby combined. The abuse was global. He abused girls in London at the 2012 Olympics, at the Caroli Ranch, USA Gymnastics Training Center in Texas, at gymnastics meetings in Rotterdam. Over a course of a week-long Senate hearing, more than 150 women made impact statements and victim statements in which they described lives crushed by trauma and shame. How could the USA Gymnastics have required hundreds of girls under its care to submit to mandatory treatment programs from a man who would give them pelvic exams in their hotel or dorm beds at night while unsupervised? And how could the complaints about him have been dismissed for so long, as detailed by the gold medalist Ali Reisman in her unforgivingly blistering testimony? It's easy to put out statements talking about how athletic care is the highest priority, but the USA Gymnastics has been saying that for years, and all while this nightmare was happening, Reisman said in court. Jennifer Stay was the 1986 U.S. national champion and a 7-time national gymnastics team member. She says she was very aware of sexual abuse in the sports when she was training in the 1980s. There were 2 men who worked in my gym, both coaches who were abusers. One was a girls' coach who was especially emotionally abusive and a sexual abuser too. One of my teammates, now an adult, told me how he'd abused her for several years. My brother's coach in the same gym was a known pedophile. It was openly discussed among the boys. No one did anything. The abuser was a reverse coach, and no one wanted to tarnish his reputation. Plus, there was always a concern that if you rocked the boat, you would be blacklisted. You wouldn't be chosen for the team. You would be blackballed in the sport entirely, which was true, as we've heard from athletes in the Nassar case. Aside from the number of girls and women abused, the most shocking revelation about this case is about how the abuse was covered up and for how long. Complaints were made to Michigan State University about Nassar as far back as 1998, but no one did anything. An investigation conducted by Indy Star during Nassar's trial revealed a long pattern in USA Gymnastics of hushing up or downplaying complaints about sexual abuse in the sport. Repeatedly, coaches and officials were protected at the expense of athletes. Since then, he has been sentenced to more than a century in jail. USA Gymnastics has filed for bankruptcy, and a reckoning around the abuse of gymnasts has swept the world. Gymnasts are constantly belittled and berated by coaches. They're stretched to the point of injury. They're denied food, and they're fat-shamed. The child is really just beaten down. The Western Australian Institute of Sport, the WAIS, which ran the Women's Artistic Gymnastics program for 28 years before it was shut down in 2016, apologized for the child abuse of the child athletes suffered. One participant described developing arthritis in her late 20s and was told by her doctor she would need a double hip replacement because of the gymnastics. Gymnastics led me to a 15-year opioid addiction to opioids to manage my pain. Parents are also discouraged from contact with their children competing in away events. A 2016 WAIS policy document states parents, friends, and family of traveling gymnasts team members were discouraged from any contact with their child during competitions. They were required to travel on different flights, stay at different accommodations, and only visit their child at the team accommodation upon request by a team official or during an organized visit. The rationale for this was to stop parents driving in and out and offering advice that would conflict with the gymnasts that were told by coaches. Parents were also asked not to attend training sessions or phone their children directly. Body shaming leaves lasting damage. The review cites a WAIS policy document titled Interpreting Your Daughter's Skin Fold Measurement 1997 that states gymnasts need to spend and power and excess fat will increase mass, slow them down, and cause stress-related injuries. It also notes gymnastics is an aesthetic sport, and there is a high degree of looking the part. A good self-image goes a long way in enhancing the gymnast's confidence in the way she presents herself on the floor. The document says, many former child gymnasts spoke of being subjected to repeated skin fold tests, twice daily weigh-ins, and having their food intake monitored. One former child gymnast told the review, I remember I was still in primary school and had made me very self-conscious in an effort to lose weight, and the praise you'd get in front of the other girls, so it works both ways. That positive reinforcement if you lose weight or your skin folds were good. Many former gymnasts reported continuing to weigh themselves multiple times a day until adulthood and having poor body images. Child gymnasts abused and denied water, food, and toilet breaks. The damning report on British Gymnastics enabled a culture of young gymnasts were starved, body-shamed, and abused, and a system that ruthlessly put the pursuit of medals over the protection of children. A devastating report has found the independent review by Anne Wine QC, based on more than 400 submissions from those in the sport, unearthed stories of gymnasts as young as 7 being sat on by coaches while stretching and others humiliated in front of their peers and deprived of food and water by coaches. I heard extreme accounts of gymnasts hiding food, for example, in ceiling tiles or underneath the bed in their rooms. Writes White at one point. I received accounts of coaches checking hotel rooms, army style, and travel bags for food. Around 75% of British Gymnastics members are children under the age of 12, and her report found girls were subjected to some of the worst treatment. However, in a report which took nearly 2 years to compile and cost £3 million, also makes for a deeply uncomfortable reading for the UK sport. The funding body for British Olympic sports, which admitted to White that the welfare of athletes was not the front seat until 2017. Gymnasts have described the culture of dehumanizing and coercive. Some of the gymnasts were discouraged from reporting injuries, and painkillers and others medications were overused to keep them from continuing to compete. In 2022, a picture of a young black Irish gymnast being skipped during a medal ceremony sparked public outrage and accusations of racism. Gymnastics Ireland apologized for the meditated with the family, but the girl's mother said the organization failed to publicly apologize. Black Colgate gymnasts described culture of racism, isolation. The tweet popped up in Tia Kazu's timeline on June 2nd. It was a simple message from the Alabama Gymnastics program featuring a plain black square marked with the word unity, part of a nationwide response to bring awareness to social and racial injustice, and similar to the hundreds of other tweets posted from college programs across the country. But for Kalu, this felt personal. Alabama gymnast coach Diana Ducksworth, preached a mantra of one heartbeat, the team's Del Fasto motto that was part of what lured her in to the Tuscaloosa as a walk-on gymnast less than 2 years earlier. After about 6 months at Alabama, however, Caillou said she wasn't embraced as part of the family, and said she witnessed teammates using racial slurs, was the subject of a racial joke from an assistant coach, and was forced to defend herself against accusations of promiscuous behavior that Duckworth suggested was the result of growing up in a single-parent household. Unity in Alabama's gymnastics program, Caillou said, was about conformity. As Cailou's June 2nd tweet circulated, other gymnasts from storied programs such as Florida, Auburn, and UCLA shared their own experiences within the gymnastics sport. The often insular world of college gymnastics is a sport now reckoned with a culture built around white athletes, and like other student athletes from other sports across the country, Black gymnasts say they're finding more courage to speak out amid the recent public protests in response to George Floyd's death while in police custody in May. Thanks in part to the success of Black gymnasts such as Gabby Douglas and Simone Biles, there has been an increase in participation over the past decade, but as of 2019, only 9% of the division is female. Gymnastics in 2019 were Black, up from 4.5% in 2008 according to the NCAA demographics database. Over the past 2 months, Caillou and Allen were among more than 30 people ESPN interviewed within college gymnastics, including current and former athletes, coaches, and administrators. Many were hesitant to talk on the record out of pressure not to rock the boat, but a camaraderie surfaced among them. At Alabama and beyond, a clear disconnect between Black gymnasts and their predominantly white coaches, who trended towards recruiting what one source called a specific type of gymnast. Caillou remained largely silent on the issues of race, unaware of phrasing such as microaggressions, racial and ethnic grouping terms, or unconscious bias, terminology she would familiarize herself with as the situation worsened. It was the team's seniors, all white, who spoke to gymnasts about racial insensitivity during a team retreat in September 2019. According to records obtained from Alabama, Caillou said she thought the conversation was productive, but issues continued to mount. She said that white teammates routinely sang along with the song lyrics that include racial slurs, that the N-word was also used on numerous occasions outside of that context. When another Black teammate told a white teammate to please not use that word, the white teammate did it anyway, claiming it was just a joke. During a vault practice, Caillou said assistant coach Bill Lourdes approached her and 2 Black teammates, Meredith Douglas and Sally Mitchell, who were sitting together, and said, "What is this, the back of the bus?" referring to a segregationist policies protested during the Civil Rights Movement era of the 1960s. Caillou said she never received an apology from Lourdes, but Doggett and Mitchell both told Alabama that Lourdes had apologized to them, and the incident was handled. 3-time All-American Ashley Lambert, who is Black, shared via social media her experiences at Nebraska, where she said she witnessed racist comments from a teammate, as well as her coach at the time, Dan Kindig, who is white. She was a member of the team from 2014 to 2017. Kara Hunter and Kinney Baker, 2 former University of Florida and U.S. national team gymnasts who are Black, each recalled similar uses that were later shrugged off as jokes. Hunter, who led the Gators to 3 national championships and won 4 individual NCAA titles during her time at the school from 2012 to 2015, complained to the coaching staff, but she later said her concerns fell on deaf ears. Baker, who competed for the Gators from 2015 to 2018, described an incident when teammates posted earlier this week, as well as recounted what she believed to be subpar treatment from the team trainer. A 90-minute drive from Tuscaloosa, 3 black gymnasts at Auburn said they were ostracized because they raised their own team issues with school administrators. Fincher A. Mackerel Phillips and Tala Blatt each told ESPN they frequently felt isolated during team events and were uncomfortable speaking to head coach Jeff Grappa or staff about their experiences. They say Grappa, who is white, often tried to downplay racist incidents. Black, a member of Auburn gymnastics team from 2016 to 2018, recalled a holiday party where a teammate gifted her a bag filled with hundreds of acorns. When Black, who wore her hair in the bun, asked what it meant, the teammate responded, "That's what your head looks like." California Labor Commissioner cites South Coast Gymnastics in Orange County $1.3 million for wage theft violations. The California Labor Commissioner's Office has cited Perfect Point Corp., DBA, South Coast Gymnastics, and Intervene $1.3 million for failing to pay 20 employees properly. An investigation found that employees were not paid for all hours worked, with some employees making less than $5 an hour. After investigators found that coaches and administration staff were underpaid, and an audit identified by the 28 workers who were underpaid during a violation period, the citations include